They're live.
Good afternoon. Today is Monday, June 2nd, 2025. It is 5:39 p.m. and we're here for the regular trustee meeting. If you can join me for a pledge of allegiance. There's a flag behind Steve Holm there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. We have an agenda before us. Are there any modifications or additions?
None from staff.
I make a motion to approve the agenda for the June 2nd, 2025 meeting as presented.
Second.
If you would amend that to also excuse trustee Wallace or consider it.
So moved.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Grass?
No. Next, we have general ledger report.
I make a motion to accept the general ledger report in the amount of $359,452.69 for the 5/14/2025 payroll.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
I make a motion to accept the general ledger report in the amount of $387,211.15 for the 5/28/2025 payroll.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
I make a motion to accept the payments listing report in the amount of $604,045.14 for warrants through 5/28/2025.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
I make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from May 7th, 2025 special trustee meeting and the May 12th, 2025 regular trustee meeting as presented.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes. And at this time, we offer the podium to any citizens or children with pink Crocs to come up and speak. Seeing none at this time, well, I see the pink Crocs, but then we'll move on. So, Mr. Rushing, we have no old business, we have no new business, we have something special from the Greene County Sheriff's Office.
Yes, Board, we do have a proclamation to recognize one of our own, and that is to do that in parity with Greene County Sheriff Scott Anger, who recently held his annual Sheriff's Award ceremony for employees of the Greene County Sheriff's Office. So in front of you, there is a proclamation. I recommend you reading that in the record, and then afterwards, we can get a photo with Sergeant Kessel.
Do have a proclamation here for recognizing Sergeant Sean Kessel for the Greene County Sheriff's 2024 Supervisor of the Year Award. Resolution number 20250602-Sheriff-A. Whereas Sean Kessel was hired by the Greene County Sheriff's Office on September 11th, 2000 in Greene County Jail Division, where he served until September of 2012, during which he served as a field training officer and was awarded the Life Saving Award and Deputy of the Year Award in 2004. And whereas in September of 2012, Sean Kessel was assigned to the Patrol Division, where he served until May 2019, during which he served as a field training officer, a SFST instructor, a certified crash reconstructionist, and was awarded the Distinguished Service Award in 2013 and a Citation of Merit in 2015. Whereas in May of 2019, Sean Kessel was promoted to the rank of sergeant and served as a training sergeant and as a field training officer. And whereas in December of 2022, Sean Kessel became the sergeant for the Beavercreek Township substation, where he serves as the supervisor of 6 deputies, including a K-9 unit, and performs both administrative and operational tasks for both Beavercreek Township and the Greene County Sheriff's Office. And whereas on May 16th, 2025, Greene County Sheriff Scott Anger recognized all of Sergeant Kessel's achievements and dedication to the Beavercreek Township Substation, and awarded Sergeant Kessel the 2024 Supervisor of the Year Award. Now therefore it be resolved that the Board of Beavercreek Township Trustees extends its deepest gratitude to Sergeant Sean Kessel for all his contributions to the residents, business owners, and visitors of Beavercreek Township, and recognizes him on being awarded the Greene County Sheriff's 2024 Supervisor of the Year.
Second.
Mrs. Dean.
Yes.
Mr. Kratz.
Yes.
Yay! I'll grab a photo if the board and elected officials want to come up front. Sergeant Kessel, you want to go up there with your family? Deputy Bowers can join as well.
Yeah, where's your speech? Left it at home. I'll get my paperwork, talking my speech.
I was afraid I'll break it. Sorry. All right. Right here, please. Excellent.
Melanie, smile.
You want to get up there? Exactly. And with that, Board, I'll turn it over to Sergeant Kessel to give his monthly report.
You know, I'm reminded how nice this position is out here, and it's just another reminder of just truly the family out here and recognition. I really do appreciate that very much. That's your speech. So, well, good. I guess it's evening, Board. Just a few awareness items for you this evening. Of course, we have our Rotary Park 4th of July festivals. It's held at Rotary Park, of course, July 4th between 6 and 10. I attended the city meeting, and we've got it, we were able to work out different dynamics, as always, with the traffic concerns on Dayton Xenia Road. And just today, we posted for 4 deputies, just to kind of get a head start on getting those assigned. And I'll be out there for the event as well.
Good.
And then I also want to mention that on June 14th at 6:30 PM, we'll have the annual Gene Fisher Flag Day, retiring the flags. It's always a nice event. Encourage everybody to show up for that. And I did want to mention that the flag collection points that Mr. Rushing worked on last year, that's really, really it's impactful. There's a lot of flags that come down monthly that we're taking downtown, so I'd say hundreds and hundreds of flags with the receptacles that the township's provided, so it's a good program.
Great.
And of course, we have the May Pack Track report with Maverick and Deputy Kraft, so Board, with that, any questions?
I had none tonight, so appreciate everything you do and what you do for the township and for being here. So, and your the information you provided, it all made sense. So,
Great, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thank you, Board. We'll now move on to Human Resources. Monthly reports in the packet. Are there any questions?
I had none. Other than just as far as just from a morale standpoint and a culture standpoint, how things are going as far as what we were experiencing, a bit of a revolving door for a while there, and it seems to have, I want to say tapered, I wouldn't say slowed, but tapered.
I would say it has slowed, and I've been May was Station 63, so I've been having lunch with each crew at the stations. This month will be 64. And so just to see if I can't have some conversations around any kind of culture issues And I don't think I'm learning anything new in these meetings, except that I think there are a lot more folks who are happy and positive than negative, at least
Good.
thus far. I do hear a lot of really good things. So
Good.
I think we're on an upswing, I hope.
I always say it's impossible to please the whole world and your mother-in-law at the same time, but you can, if you can please most of them, that's helpful, and if they can work together. Any challenges, or service level issues as far as with the new softwares that you're implementing and putting through? Are we getting the service we need and what we paid for and what we expected?
Well, I can't recall when we had, I think the chief and I did have our meeting in May with Lexapol and figured out a way forward, but he certainly gave them the what for about their oversale of the functionality of the platform. They have assured us that they're gonna take care of the one issue we're having with, about not being able to access the fire side and the township side in one platform.
Okay.
But we've, for now, figured out a way forward for managing the township policy manual on the township side, and then I'm gonna manage it with the chief on the fire side. So
Okay.
we're working through that.
Was that requirement a deliverable that we specified to them as important in the beginning?
I don't know that that was, it certainly wasn't anything that I really contemplated being an issue. So I don't know that I asked the question of the salesperson, am I gonna be able to log in as JSync email on both platforms?
Sure.
I assumed we'd have the two manuals in one account. And they're telling us they can't do that, but they're working on that
To
for the
synchronize,
future.
okay.
Yeah. So I have now a shadow email account so I can access the fireside to make sure the chief gets the updates to the township policy when they happen and can run them through on the fireside.
Okay.
And UKG, I think, is coming along pretty
I
well.
guess it's kind of hard to believe we're the first department that would want that or need that.
It is amazing to me, quite honestly, but
Have we spoken with any of the other communities that they service to verify how they did a workaround?
I have not, no.
Might be useful. I mean, obviously, they gave us references of who they've worked with. And what I've found with software enhancements is they take more than one complaining party. And so it might be helpful just to reach out to other user bases, at least a couple large ones that might be using the same software and experiencing the same, and they just gave up and worked with it to team up against, essentially, to make sure that something gets done. It may not happen until the next software release. I get that. I was in the software business, so I understand it, but it's all complaint driven. It's kind of like zoning enforcement. So,
Right.
okay. So that's just my recommendation.
Thank you.
Okay. Other than that, I had no questions. I don't know if you had anything or not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Do have one request. Looking at the time, we do have a 6:30 public hearing. The next topic is community development, which we do have a potentially quite a bit of, comments on the proposed character areas. So considering that staff member has to stay for the public hearing anyways, if it entertains the board, if we can move on to the other departments, just in case if we run into that, they don't have to stay in addition to the public hearing as well.
Yeah, that, or we can also table it if we need to the next one, but whatever's most efficient, so. Okay,
Oh, how about we carry on with the other departments and then
That's
see
fine.
where we end up with the
Yep.
public hearing?
roll tide.
So next is information technology. You have the monthly report in your packet. Are there any questions?
I had none for IT.
I had none. Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Move on to Finance Department, your monthly reports in your packet. Are there any questions?
I did have quite a few questions for this one, but I'll defer them because I think I answered most of them myself, so thank you.
Thank you. I'm now moving on to public service, and we do have several action items, so I'll turn it over to Mr. Schroeder.
Good afternoon. Have a few things for you this morning. It's that time of year for our paving and resurfacing programs. This year, we have, the first one in front of you is the chip seal agreement through Greene County. We're gonna be doing 3 roads, which is Line Ball, Route Song, and Sperling. All those roads don't carry the volume of traffic that would warrant asphalt. So the bid came back in relatively well for us. So what I need to do first is to agree to be part of the collective package, and then from there, we'll go into the purchase requisitions.
Great. It's all you.
Make a
on page-
motion, 2025-0602-PSD-A. I move to participate in the 2025 Greene County Engineers Collective Bid Program Chip Seal as presented.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The next item will be to do the purchase request for the chip seal program. As you can see in there, I've given the same explanation I just gave you about the reasoning. Also gave you the quotes that came back into Greene County. When I went ahead and made this, I also put in a 10% contingency, just because we sometimes run into that. So that total has the contingency included of $74,425.76. So any questions I can answer for you on that?
I had none.
I make a motion to approve purchase request 25-PSD-0192 to Henry W. Bergman for the chip sealing in the amount of $74,425.76, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. And now we'll just do the agreement for the collective paving portion. Any questions you have for me on any of that?
I had none.
Make a motion 2025-0602-PSD-C. I move to participate in the 2025 Greene County Engineers Collective Bid Program paving as presented.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
And then the last, well, not the last item, but the next item is just the purchase request for John R. Jurgensen to do the paving. And again, this has the 10% contingency already included in the $262,566.84. Any questions there?
Make a motion to approve purchase request 25-PSD-0193 to John R. Jurgensen for paving in the amount of $262,566.84, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
And then the last item was just the monthly.
Any challenges that you're having with Enterprise, or has those issues been resolved, or
Enterprise, Enterprise is doing fine.
Ford?
Yeah, Ford is where we still have some issues, and we're getting ready to dive into that. I spoke with Mr. Rushing about that at length in one of our meetings. I just feel that Ford, it's not the same quality that we've had in the past. So we're looking at maybe changing out a couple of our vehicles to a different make to see if that trouble somewhat goes away.
Sure.
And then they're also, Ford is not being very well, not working well with incentives. So they're really kind of sticking it to everybody. They have no incentives, their build times are longer, and don't feel like we're getting the quality that we had before. So we're gonna work through that. But as far as Enterprise in general, yes, we're,
As far as their handling of it,
yeah,
as far
our
as
communication is very back and forth, I have no issues
that's
there.
improved, okay, good. I had no other questions.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, board. Now move on to fire department. I'll turn it over to Chief Hawker, it appears.
Yes, I'm gonna defer, I talked enough, so, with the board's permission, Chief Hawker will present.
Sorry.
Fire at will.
All right.
Sorry.
Good evening, Board. Thank you for your time. Tonight, we have a request for a resolution affirming the fire department's scope and authority. So through the accreditation process, it requires us to review and update, revise documents, including resolutions. So this is one of the ones that we are bringing before you, and this is for the authority and scope to provide emergency services to our community. The attached resolution is the same verbiage as the previous resolution. It's just going to require a new resolution date.
Can be passed as presented.
Make a motion for resolution 20250602-fire-A, a resolution affirming the fire department's scope and authority of response and operations as presented.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes. Thank you.
And then lastly, we have our monthly packet. This is a new presentation for the fire department. It is still a work in progress. So we will be making a few tweaks here and there. Our hyperlinks didn't come through when we transitioned it over to a PDF, so we'll work on that. The one thing we would like to mention from this packet is the recognition of excellence for Lieutenant Alex Wendt. He was awarded the Colleagues in Caring for the month of May from Premier Health, and he was off duty and stopped at a vehicle accident and helped the victim in the accident, and his care provided a tremendous amount of care that he would not have otherwise received based on his professional standards and his certifications. And the CareFlight Air and Mobile Services sent a recognition for allowing him to receive this award and presented the certificate there at the bottom that you can see in the monthly packet. And we just are very proud of Lieutenant Alex Wendt, now Lieutenant, for taking his duties above and beyond just being on duty itself and providing care while off duty.
Well noted. Question, Ms. Frick. So we recognize, it seems like a number of our people that do amazing things and save lives and comfort people off duty. And so the question comes to just making sure that those individuals that are within our group and on our department, when they act on, are they acting as a good Samaritan? Or are they acting, how are they protected in the event something did not go right?
Likely you could make an argument for both, given that they could look at the Good Samaritan immunities and benefits under that statute, but I do believe it's very likely that you could still argue under the political subdivision immunities to protect them. And I'm quite certain that OTARMA would probably still cover them as well under that, because they would still be covered members of the policy.
Sure, okay. And it's more just to make sure that they're protected in the event that they choose to do the best thing they can. So, thank you. Any other highlights that you wanted to point out to us of specific?
Nothing in particular, sir.
Okay. Ms. Dean, do you have anything?
I didn't have anything. I do like your new report. I like the detailed information in there. It gives lots of information
The
on,
formatting's great.
yeah,
Thank you.
It's almost like a monthly newsletter now,
yeah.
in reality. I mean, it's, yeah, well done. Very good. I had nothing else, so unless you're here to ask for money, then you can defer that to the chief, okay?
Thank you.
We'll see in July with the list.
We'll resume party in July, so, all right, thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you, Board. We have completed all the department reports, except community development. We do have the reviewing of the community plan for the character areas. Would you like to begin that up until the public hearing? Or would you like to, you mentioned potentially tabling
That's
that.
up to, I'll leave that up to speaker at large.
Actually, we can give it a shot. There's,
Okay.
You guys, good evening, board.
Good evening.
I imagine you did have this in your packet and had somewhat of a chance to review it,
Yeah.
so that might help speed it along a little bit. Mr. Rushy and I have been talking about trying to break this out, and in his words, is trying to eat the elephant one bite at a time. So this would be the first bite of chewing on that elephant. I've been working on some mapping components and everything else that we can move into. So, but really what defines the whole community plan is those character areas and what you want to see within those. From there, it will be mapped out into the community as far as the map goes, and then we'll start to make that correlation between the two. I took what was already done by the consultant previously, did some tweaks. They were very minor, but I think very impactful as far as what it means to the plan. The documents that you got were changes made in red and deletions made in green. So hopefully those were able to kind of guide you through as you were looking through those. If you want, we can go through those one at a time.
I'd say maybe just hit, like, begin and maybe just hit your.
Some of the highlights?
What you changed rather than.
Sure.
You don't need to read everything necessarily.
Yeah.
To us, but what you changed, so residential low density.
Residential low density is the first one, and this was suburban before, so technically the residential low density should be highlighted in red, but we changed it to kind of make it more what we call it here in the township, which is residential. And the biggest change here was that I added a kind of a density cap, kind of a guardrail, if you will, on maximum density for this district to be 3 units per acre. So this will be 3 units and below.
And all single family, correct? 'Cause
All single
residential
family.
could also be apartments.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I came up with that 3 units in discussing it out with the Home Builders Association, a few of the current developers and everything else, and that 3 units is a model that they're working off of currently right now. So single-family products and 3 units down. They do have estate type of products, which are a little larger lots, and that'll be kind of dictated by the landscape and what we currently have. So 3 units would give us a good high cap on that, top end cap, I should say, as far as what our residential densities would be for our normal single family.
Okay.
Moving on to residential medium density. So this would be, for instance, where we have Hillside Farms going in. We can have multifamily, we could have single family, we could have a mix of the two. The big change here is once again adding those guardrails, putting in 3 units per, the single family in those products should still be at the 3 units, but if you're doing multifamily, you can jump up to the 6 units per acre and a combination of the two at 4 units per acre. So let's say we were doing a community like Hillside Farms, but they wanted to have a component of some single family mixed on one side with the apartments on the other. We could do that, but their maximum density would be capped at 4.
I don't understand your math.
Okay?
So, if you would allow 6 units per acre, and then you say, but if you blend single and multifamily together, you're only gonna allow up to 4 units per acre.
Okay.
There's zero incentive
To put the single
to
family
put
in?
the single family in. So I guess my question would be, and you're presuming that everything, the 6 units would be attached side by side and not stacked.
They could be stacked, they could
No,
be
I'm saying
separate
that-
areas too,
right.
within the same development?
Because within the same acre, you could put 4 units in a stack of 2 and single families, and you'd have 6.
Correct.
And so I don't the only thing I don't understand is why we would cap, and I'm just trying to understand so explain to me why we would cap the max density when the max is already set at 6.
Well, we don't have to necessarily, but one of the things that I think I
Well,
was
as
trying.
far as the recommendation, yeah.
Yeah,
like,
one
what
of the
do you-
things I was trying to avoid would be where we just rezone something to a straight product. When we said, okay, we're gonna rezone this to a residential medium density with 6 units and not put a number on it. And then they came back through with one of the higher density single-family products that was stacked, very close single-family, and didn't meet the kind of character of Beavercreek Township. I'm always trying to avoid the bait and switch that could be existing, not necessarily from that developer, but from one down the road.
Yeah, then I think, then my suggestion might be to consider So the interesting piece is, so, and then you get into condominiums versus apartments. And the auditor considers a 6-unit apartment building to be one parcel. Or one property on one parcel, could potentially with its own parcel ID number. Might have 20 of those on one parcel ID number. And then there's that's apartments, and they generally stipulate that as commercial.
Correct.
Because all 6 units are on the same parcel number, whether it's one building or.
Yeah, that's generally the auditor stipulation, is commercial
Right,
for
and
the
then
apartments.
and then condominiums, because each condo gets its own parcel ID number,
Common wall parcels,
right?
yeah.
So one is considered commercial, one is considered residential for that reason. And so
For land use
what you're,
purposes.
right, what we're talking about here though is a blend of, we don't distinguish whether is this for apartments or condominiums?
We're just considering it as total units. So that's where our differential comes in, as our classification is residential units.
Okay. And so I think my recommendation would be to try to look at it and be a little more specific and break residential down into multifamily rental and multifamily
Okay,
condominium. And the reason I say that is because that even gets to be a debate when it comes to, we have, you mentioned Hillside Farms. So there is a TIF on that property and there are only 3 units per building, but they purchased that property because it was 6 units an acre
correct.
of density. And it was TIFed because 3 units or more is considered commercial. If they condoed those out, those same exact buildings on the same streets 10 years from now, which they could do, they could apply for a parcel for each one. By condoing those out, if this were in effect when they bought that land,
They wouldn't be able to do it,
they wouldn't be able to do it.
correct.
And so I just think it's worthy of a look when we start talking about what we stipulate as high density, which is 6 units, but if you go to other communities, 18, 20 units
It's
an
not
acre.
high, yeah,
So a 3-story walk-up, 18 units an
Correct.
acre is a typical product.
how do we feel as a group here talking about this, about that 6-unit cap? I try to
there-
look at it to
yeah.
what we have versus what
I don't
kind of
have an issue
is
with it only
acceptable.
because typically what happens, is that by the time a developer goes through the process, and you see this more than most people, if it's in an HOA or not in an HOA, either way, it usually ends up in one. And then when it goes through the site plan, specific site plan review and approval process, both at the township and at the county, things like green space, things like where are your playgrounds were gonna be, where's your trails gonna be for the Greene County Master Trails Program. By the time you do all those, they nip at the heels
Yeah.
of acreage. And so even though approved at 6, generally doesn't end up at 6.
Yeah.
And so approved at 4, I guess my challenge is that 6 units an acre has not been abused, for lack of a better term. And
I
has
think
not-
one of the
and
things
hasn't
that
ended,
the township did that was tremendous is we have the McIntyre Estates coming back. And that was approved
Yeah.
at the 100 units, so that's set. So now everybody I've talked to that's been interested in that's been like, it's 100 units. It's not a units per acre, it's not a anything else, it's 100 units.
Yeah, and that process was an interesting one.
Oh, yes, to say the least.
That could have went a different way, and the developer agreed to 100 acres and then was upset that we passed it at 100.
Right.
Here nor there.
And one of the things that I tried to do with that guardrail on this was to be able to provide that kind of mix and that higher density. We could keep it at 6 overall, and we could still get that same mix.
I think you achieve the same thing if you leave it at 6. You might end up with a blended community. Typically, you don't. I mean, you might have a duplex and a 4-unit
Right.
next to each other, and you'd hate to say no to that.
I think we could achieve the same level of what we do, just
So-
leave it at 6 and drop off the other 2
And
guardrails.
then I think you end up, you solve some of those issues at the site plan approval process.
So it sounds like that's probably the
That's
best way
my
to do it.
recommendation, but Ms. Dean may have a different opinion, so.
No,
Have this discussion.
I think that the 6 is fine. I think especially for the residents who, it's not something that they're used to having multifamily in the township. And so the less units per acre, I think that, they would be more inclined to, be happy with that kind of, you get up in those big numbers and they're gonna come out and be upset
I think
about
that-
those kind of numbers.
By this discussion, I think probably the best thing to do would be just to have that straight guardrail at 6 units per acre and map it and move
If
forward.
6 isn't right, make it 5, I'm just
Right.
saying, but I wouldn't.
6 seems to be
this
right
math gets-
for our multifamily like what we do. 6 seems to be the right number.
Right, the way my brain works, I'm sitting here trying to figure out the loophole to get around that, and if I can figure it out, developer can figure it out pretty quickly.
See, that's what we're trying to fight against, right there.
Give me a couple months.
The other thing is, down farther where they always put commercial, they said office would be included within commercial. The way we're trying to change some of the things in the zoning code itself and further define things,
Yeah,
we
and
wanna separate office out.
I think I'd really go back to, there's the difference between multifamily residential and multifamily rental, or
Right.
however you wanna say it, or commercial, because, to have a mixed-use development that has, residential over retail,
Mm-hmm.
that was originally contemplated for, the corner of Dayton, Xenia, and Treebine.
Correct.
That's the original plan, if you go back to the late 90s and the early 2000s, is they wanted the green essentially
Mm-hmm.
over there. The market said no, but either way, so you.
Yeah,
I
the
think-
market tore those concepts up.
And then there's also been contemplated developments in the township where they wanted to mix, single-family and rental. So single-family for sale and multifamily rental. And so that was discouraged by HOA, but there's nothing precluding it in the
Right.
current, so.
Sure.
And that was the argument, well, no one said we can't,
Okay,
so.
We'll
I
take a
just
look at
think
that to
Maybe
rework it.
differentiate and separate rental from that, because commercial goes with a rental potentially.
more
It
than
does-
the single family or
Right.
the, owner occupied.
Yeah, well, and even then, is a condominium, what's the difference between a condo?
Not much,
8 townhouses put together, or 6 townhouses put together.
Versus an apartment.
Versus 6 apartments.
yeah. Not
And then
much.
you have to always remember, those 6 apartments could be condos, and those 6 condos could become apartments.
I think the best choice for that is just to leave it at 6 and put our uses and adjust it at the
Yeah,
site plan
and
level.
then maybe, like I said, differentiate with the rental product somehow. Okay.
Thank you for the input. Low impact development neighborhood, that's the next one. The McIntyre Estate's coming back as a good example of this. Hunters Point, another good character example of this. I did the calculations of the 35% open space. I originally had it at 40. 35 is what Hunters Point has as far as open space goes. So that would be the minimum to give you a character comparison to what we have existing. So residential clustered with 35% open space, still keeping your same densities for your single family.
Okay.
Commercial was one I had removed from that, because I don't think it's got any place in that. Civic and institutional, that's pretty straightforward. That is your government centers, firehouses, Greene County sanitary facilities.
Do
and all that.
libraries fall into that?
I'm sorry?
Do libraries fall into that?
They would, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And one of the secondary uses that the consultant had put in there again was commercial, but it could be commercial from our standpoint, but it would still be controlled by a governmental use. So there's no reason to list commercial as a land use in there.
Yeah, I think you could, so in the event that Premier wanted to do a joint facility with us, where would you park that?
Like a medical facility type of thing? or-
Yeah, let's just say they wanted to put an urgent care and bolt it onto a fire station.
I think you could still call it, I mean, it would still have the institutional use because it would generally be our ownership of it. We would be throwing it out to Premier. Now, if it was going the other way, we'd probably have to push it more into those areas that are for office, which they would want anyway.
Yeah, what if they wanted to build the fire station for you?
Well, then they write the check and we'll change the land use
They
plan.
you'd sell the land. for a dollar.
I think the chief would like that answer, but yeah, I mean, it would end up being an institutional use at the end of the day.
So we can discuss that at some other, wait, I don't want to cobble up your meeting, but you think of the football fields that have been built. There's no reason a fire station shouldn't be either.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and it would be ours at the end anyway, the actual use of it. So this looks a lot more like use than ownership.
Okay.
Traditional agriculture, so this is more of that kind of northern end of the township, a little bit of the southern end as well, kind of down towards like the airport area has a lot of agriculture. Over 5 acre lots, I threw that guardrail in there as just something to look forward or look at as we're taking into consideration what we're looking at.
This has been kicked around at regional planning multiple times. And so the argument, and there are, if you talk to Deandra and Aberthil on this one, and ask for examples of other townships in Greene County that have done this. So there's a wide range of what they've tried to do to preserve the rural character of the rural, and some of the townships are far more rural than Beavercreek Township. And they get into some, it can get a little bit abstract as far as how many 5 acre lots can you put across a 100 acre farm? How many can be side by side, and then how many, then the separation, and there's every version you can think of that's been brought to regional planning. The overarching comment is you're telling a farmer they can't sell that farm. And do you have a leg to stand on?
And that's why one of the key words in this is should be over 5 acres. This isn't one of those shall be over 5 acres.
Okay.
So this is just that guideline for that, which pairs with the mixed rural, which is next, which has 1 acre lots. So it's just kind of for planning purposes. I think the work really goes in on this one to our zoning code. And I came from a rural township as far as that goes, and we took everything. And one of the things you have to be careful with, to be flat honest about it, is when you start making some requirements, it opens up things, large tracts of lands that are available for annexation at a later time as a township. So we don't want to limit our farmers and development, but at the same time, it's just a planning tool to be able to use, and that's why I didn't make it absolute on this one.
Well, and it goes to, so regional planning went through this and they developed their version of this type of plan that was.
The perspective?
Multiple times, perspectives 2020. And it was, repeatedly, we say that it's not a Bible, it's not the rule. It's a guide that townships may follow in the event they don't have people like you that work for them. And so then naturally I would challenge that and say, then why are we running a 36-inch sewer line up Hilltop Road out to Xenia with water to all the fields that you're saying shouldn't be developed? So.
Well, we're writing that up Hilltop. And
We're not, I'm saying the county doing that. So the county took a 48-inch sewer pipe across Trayvine, then they ran it up to Ludlow Creek, and they're gonna drop it to 36-inch, and they're gonna shoot it out to Xenia in hopes that someday one of the big farmers out there decides to develop their farm. So there's conflicting interests, even at the county level. And then it comes back to, don't make a rule that you can't enforce.
That was interesting at the home builders meeting last week. They were talking about trying to get water and sewer, especially sewer, extended out more farther east of Xenia to accommodate housing developments out there for the.
Land's cheaper.
Yeah, land's cheaper, for one. Two, it's closer to the new developments, new commercial developments that are going on out there.
It's only cheaper until the water and sewer get there.
Then it becomes more expensive, correct?
So, okay. As long as you've got the should, then, because we make it a shall, and I think we lose every day.
We do.
Yeah.
The next one is the mixed rural, and these are districts that kind of blend agriculture and other uses. So in here, you can even have some small scale, commercial, such as, a little, feed store or something along those lines, grain establishments and that sort of thing. Lots for this would be typically, over 1 acre lots. So this is kind of between your 1 and 5.
Yeah. So I came across the one that's a marathon station, a feed store, and a restaurant, and a bar, all
Seen
in,
one of those too.
all in one.
Yes.
And so I don't know that that's coming to Beavercreek Township, but Xenia Township, I could see it potentially, or like where we border them. And it was, originally portrayed as they tried to go under agritourism and they tried to go under some other stuff, but
Found one similar to that out in like the Arcanum area at one time. I didn't know which door to go in and what I was doing out that way. So, yeah, and that's one of the things we have to be commercial with or careful with our zoning, our code when we get to it as far as, this is to be the planning document.
yeah.
The zoning code would be the rules, so we have to make sure we're addressing those.
In those, where you say those should be 5-acre lots, so those are obviously too small to be considered for CAUV, the 5-acre lots. So when you go back to the rural character areas, where they should be 5 acres. And even here, when we talk about commercial use within an agricultural area, so, defining the difference, and then where does our permitting actually is it even applicable? So if someone wants to build an ag barn, they can get an ag exemption.
Absolutely. Yeah, if it's
I don't know.
100% agricultural use.
I don't know do we require an electrical permit for an ag barn?
No.
Do we do an electrical
I mean,
inspection?
we don't do it. The
building-
county does.
County might. Okay.
Right, if they get the full ag exemption, they don't have
So
to do
we're
any of
done,
it.
we pass it to them?
Yeah.
Okay. So if someone wants to, going back to that 5 acres is on the CAUV limitation. So, when they already carve out 1 acre for the house and now you're left with 4, versus an 11-acre minimum, you could actually encourage someone, a 5-acre would typically end up being like a mini farm.
Correct.
But an 11-acre property would most likely still be farmed. Because
Most likely,
you
yeah,
could have
probably
the
10
house-
acres
you
of
could
it.
have the house on 1 and 10 acres in CAUV. And so just something to think about. So I'm not
So in
trying to
thinking
stall
of,
you here, I'm just keep
no,
it going.
no, that's fine.
If the
totally fine.
intent is to keep it rural,
You gotta up that acreage.
then
I
it needs to
mean,
be 11.
Yeah, I
If
mean,
the intent is to keep it small lots, then 5, I understand the logic. So,
well, here, once again,
But
it's
5
the,
doesn't
it's the
keep it-
argument between
doesn't keep
keeping
it
it
rural.
rural or keeping it agriculture. I mean, to keep it agriculture, you need to jump that way up there. But a rural feel is still, you look at the American Planning Association, if they're looking at rural being anything over 3/4 of an acre
Yeah.
lot. So, and that, we've all seen some things that aren't necessarily rural, but that's what they consider it.
I didn't see cluster housing in here anywhere.
The only thing, yeah, we kind of kept that one out of there. So, I can revisit that rural characteristic with CAUV a little bit, but,
Just have some discussion, yeah.
okay. Corridor commercial, so this is basically the stuff we have along 35.
So my question on this one was, how does Highway Overlay District interface with this?
The highway overlay district interfaces with this, and it gives those people along in that district some higher signage, some different sorts of, access control.
So should we just merge those into this?
Call it the
Or
highway
is
business
there
corridor.
anything that would be in this that would not be in the highway overlay?
No,
So if, in that event, then rather than have the potential of having the two conflict at any point in the future, should they be merged? Because we said we could do, 40 or 60 feet over grade for a sign? I forget
Yeah, I
what it
think it's
was.
40.
Something like that.
But I think here, though, to keep in mind, this is just laying out what
This is the plan.
the type of business would be in there, whereas the highlight overlay district is more the zoning
It's this, yeah.
itself.
I guess the question is if this map and that map are the same, should they be aligned?
yeah, and they're not quite the same.
Okay.
The highway kind of extends down a little bit more,
Okay.
but
Is Dayton Xenia in the corridor?
no,
Okay.
that's moves
So it's
into
just
more
the
of the
highway.
the neighborhood. In this corridor, as far as that goes, yeah, it moves into the neighborhood business district, which is
Okay.
next neighborhood.
That's
corridor.
what I thought. This looked like highway business
Yeah,
area, which is,
and maybe instead of corridor commercial, because 35, all those other ones are actually corridor roads for us. Maybe we call this highway commercial instead of calling
yeah,
it corridor.
Vandalia has a clever name for it, highway business something, and it's businesses that would support
Interstate
the
stuff. Just make a note.
just a comment. I understand what you're saying, Don. It's, the two are, this is,
The plan.
No, I
got.
get, I
this
I
is your
get
high
it
level,
too,
this is
yeah.
your vision, and the other is the
The
application.
closer though that we can get these to terminologies to match, the more it starts to make sense when you read through both documents.
Yeah,
And on that one, we went through quite a bit of effort to get to that highway business overlay, and that wasn't that long ago compared to how long ago we did.
The rest of it,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you
Yeah.
might just look to that as some guidance.
Neighborhood commercial would be like your Dayton Xenia Road, potentially Valley, if it gets developed and those sorts of things. So, it's gonna be your smaller scale retail, your, offices.
And board, it is 6:30,
Oh.
so
I
we
went
do have
fast.
to switch
Sure,
gears
we
for,
can take a pause that.
even though we're the own applicant, so, but it's what was in the public notice.
Okay. Do we have anybody waiting outside by chance or not?
Contentious case, so you never know.
If staff wants to leave,
Yeah, this is a
Feel
good
free.
opportunity for you guys to go home.
I thought you meant you were gonna go, you were like, yeah.
This is a good opportunity for me to go home too.
yeah. Have a good night.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey.
Terry, I'll save my questions for the next one. Make sure you bring a
He's gonna have a
laptop.
load of them next month.
She didn't have her laptop, so.
Have a good night, Joe.
You
Bye.
find this interesting? Oh, sorry. Didn't know that was one. I didn't even look at that.
Okay, so we are going to take a break from our regular trustee meeting, and I will call to order the public hearing. So the Beavercreek Township trustees are meeting to consider an application from Beavercreek Township Zoning Commission for a text amendment to Beavercreek Township Resolution. Proposed changes to the text modify Article 17, 19, 22, and 24 to allow public notices to be placed on the township's website and social media in lieu of newspaper publication. Beavercreek Township Zoning Commission has sent a recommendation to the Board of Trustees to approve the text changes as submitted. The Beavercreek Township Board of Trustees will make a final decision on this case. At this public hearing, the trustees may approve the text amendment as recommended, approve with condition, or deny it. This is a legislative action. This notice was prepared and processed for publication by Community Development Director Andy Earhart in accordance with state requirements. The application documents may be viewed at the zoning office, 851 Orchard Lane, on or before right now. And we will begin this case 844 text amendment hearing now.
Good evening again, Board. You've already read all the intro to it, just to give you a little bit of a background. House Bill 315 was signed into law and became effective April 3rd of this year. That instituted, it was the omnibus change to the Ohio Revised Code, several sections. I think Ms. Frick gave you kind of a synopsis of all the different sections that were changed by this, but this bill's basically, for this case, it allows us to make our public notifications on the township's website and on social media, saving us thousands of dollars worth of advertising fee and time that it takes sometimes to get those advertisements over to Cox Media Group and those places. So on April 3rd, 2025, the Beavercreek Township Zoning Commission recommended to move that forward and send it to the Planning Commission. The executive committee and full commission approved it in April, on the 15th and 22nd. It was unanimous approval at all three boards, the zoning commission and the RPCC. You can go to the next slide. So basically, what this is these are changes that refer to Article 17, 19, 22, and 24 of the Beavercreek Township zoning resolutions. And a synopsis: all sections newspaper have been replaced with accordance to section 519 of the Ohio Revised Code. The reason that we did not say website and social media is in case there was some other sort of new communication that comes out there. We never heard of MySpace before, and then it came and went. So we never know what's kind of come up. So this allows us to stay within accordance with that chapter 519. Other references to newspaper for cost of publications have been removed. Nothing will change for the mailing requirements. We're still gonna do those mailings. They still have to be out 10 days ahead of time, and they still are 500 feet for all the distances of the property. The proposed text change has been reviewed by Township's legal counsel. Staff has already been researching changes to the website. We do believe we have the ability to incorporate those changes. So if you're familiar with the website, where it says public meeting notices and agendas that, or now it says agendas, it will say public meeting notices / agendas and minutes. And that will also allow those push notifications and everything else to go out, so people can subscribe to that and become aware when zoning cases go out. RPCC approved it unanimously. The next one should be Zoning Commission, approved it unanimously, and then we are here to you. Obviously, staff prepared it, so staff recommends the proposed changes to the zoning resolution.
Yep.
Any questions?
No. As usual, Beavercreek Township was the benchmark for this with regional planning, and I'm sure everybody else will be copy pasting
Yeah.
and passing it themselves.
They'll be asking for copies of what
Yep.
I've done so
So
far. So.
thanks for being at the leading edge. Okay, do we have a motion? Oh, we got to open the public hearing, I'm sorry.
I said 1, 2.
If there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak, Chief Hawker, it's your last chance. Okay. If not, we'll close the public portion. Trustees discuss among themselves. Any questions you had, concerns, comments?
No concerns.
Yeah, good job keeping it evergreen.
Yeah.
So that's
Thank you.
I always push for that.
Stand by, board.
Sorry, I sent the resolution to Ryan, and I think he thought I printed it. I thought he printed it, so we're working on printing it now.
That's all right.
There's a sample resolution that was in your packet, emailed to you, but it's also in front of you. It can be passed as presented, and it'll be shortly to the printer.
Make a motion for resolution number 20250602-ZC-A, a resolution to approve zoning text amendment, modify Articles 17, 19, 22, and 24 of the Beavercreek Township zoning resolution as presented.
Second,
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
yes.
Thank you, board.
Motion to adjourn.
And we will close that public hearing and
Yeah, just
we will,
close it. We are still in the regular meeting.
yeah, we will resume our regular meeting.
So I know you have other business. I don't know how much, if you wanted to continue the discussion or if you thought we could wrap that up. I believe we were on the commercial, neighborhood commercial. That is totally at the purview of the board.
Let's hit the highlights if we can, real quick.
So neighborhood commercial, one of the highlights I added there was to try and encourage the shared access. I think that's important as we go through these corridors. There's a lot of traffic congestion already on like Dayton, Xenia, and all the other collector roads that we have. So I think we should encourage that within the plans as they come through. Other than that, adding all those things, you'll also see that commercial was replaced with office, eating, drinking, healthcare, and personal services. Those are terms that are going to align with the zoning code as we go through rewrites.
And so as you go through your commercial zones, and you've got your industrial zones, where does so on, as Dayton Xenia turns up and goes into Xenia Township, and so where you've got the Killcare property, essentially halfway in Beavercreek Township, halfway in Xenia Township. And with NHRA now acquiring that racetrack, there's already murmurs about
I figured there would be.
developing the front of that now. And so with the portion that's in the township, it was years ago they came forward with a proposal looking for self-storage. They ended up getting it approved on the Xenia Township side, but not on the Beavercreek Township side. But what zone on your map, where does that fall? Which district?
It's basically it would all be industrial.
Because of the gravel pits across
Because
the
the
street?
gravel pits, the
Okay.
areas that are around it,
Okay.
existing land uses.
And so refresh me that if it's zoned industrial, I can put anything that's a B2 there or not?
That's a question I wasn't prepared to ask. I believe you can. BT uses follow into industrial.
If it's under, essentially, there's typically so we might just want to look at that.
Yeah, that'd be,
Just-
jumping over to the zoning code, I don't remember, I'd have to look to see what the use is. We have that whole entire
Sure.
use table of what's allowed, which I'm
And
gonna work to
there's-
try and simplify
Yeah,
that.
and there's been a battle, I mean, for decades as far as Xenia Township not enforcing a noise ordinance.
Oh, yeah,
And so it's just a discussion that's worthy of having. And I don't know, and I know this doesn't necessarily go back to zoning commission, but I think it's something worthy of having further discussion on, where does that fall into play? Whether it's a support business for, some of those little buildings that are even on the north side, across from the gravel
Yeah.
pits.
Yeah.
Those could easily redevelop. And then there's a piece of vacant land there that's Beavercreek Township, that the highest and best use is not more gravel.
correct. Probably be racetrack from NHRA.
Just something to consider, so.
Sir. The Business and Research Center, that one is basically one parcel right now. There's some other ones that are slated for the,
Sure,
Valley Springs Farm area. But
if when,
yeah, if and when. And it's pretty straightforward. It's not much different than neighborhood commercial, to be real honest with you, because it
Yeah.
doesn't really differentiate itself out. Low impact commercial is a district that was added that we don't have anything like this. So there's no character examples in the photos. But that was kind of made for the Valley Springs Farm area because of the large area of floodplain and floodway that's over there, and to try and take those parcels and be able to develop them into commercial pieces, but have some of that kind of same look that we looked at with the low-impact residential. So some dedication to open space and those sorts of things. What doesn't make as much sense to me in the low-impact commercial is that they don't gain any density requirements or anything. Commercial is the commercial area that it can be placed. So the only thing I could think of is we would do it to make their permeable, or their surface area that they can build on larger, but that kind of defeats the purpose of making it low impact. So it's a strange district to me. I know why it was put in there with the Valley Springs Farm area, but it's a strange district, and we're gonna have to see how that relates to the zoning code, so.
The overarching, comment though, I guess, or question would be just a confirmation. And so this is a guide, this is a plan.
Correct.
This is not zoning. And so if someone purchased a piece of property 3, 5, 10, 20 years ago and it had zoning at that time, we're not, by changing the vision or the plan for the future, this is essentially saying, we've watched the market for the last 10 or whatever years, and now we're seeing how it's gonna go in the future, how growth is gonna go, and we're just trying.
We're giving it
Trying to
that
continue.
opportunity to
Yeah.
be developed that new way. And that's what so I had to have this filed out at
The challenge is though, that in a zoning hearing,
Correct.
the chair or someone will pull out this document and say, but this says this is the plan, this is the vision, your presentation doesn't align with this. And then in my other life, I have to say, but that wasn't there when the land was purchased. And so it's no different than, perspectives 2020. It's like, okay, it's not the Bible, it's not the rule, it's the guide. So if one of so when you go through a rezoning, is one of your requirements that it's consistent with the comprehensive land use plan?
Yes.
Yes.
And so if I bought that land 5 years ago and it's no longer conforms,
But the only way you'd be back before the board is if you bought that land 5 years ago and didn't rezone it how you wanted to have it zoned. So in other words, if you bought it 5 years ago and it was industrial, and now our new one says it's gonna be,
let's just say you
Commercial.
bought it when it was 6 units an acre.
yeah,
And you passed this, or actually 8 units an acre is what I should say, because there was property that was 8 units an acre, and now you make it 6. So then, and I come in for my site plan, Now what?
But your underlying zoning would already be approved to date, so you'd be stuck, the zoning commission would have to do the 8.
And the reason I bring this up is because Fairborn and Beavercreek and, Fairborn has a 6-month rule and Beavercreek has a 12-month rule. And that if a property, hypothetically, there's a property right now that the company's owned it for 50-plus years. It's always been that use.
What it is.
If it goes vacant for 12 months in the city of Beavercreek, it has to become, instead of being a construction company that could go in there, it has to be a B2 use.
The only way that comes into play with us, and it's a 2-year period for us, is if it's a non-conforming use period.
Right.
So if it was
If it's
vacant for 2 years.
non-conforming, yeah.
Right,
Well, non-conforming to the current, but if it was there for 50 years,
correct.
So-
It'd still be the 2-year vacancy.
yeah. Yeah, in my other life, I'd argue that's a taking.
I could see where you would argue that.
Yeah, okay. So, but again, the key is if this becomes, in whatever form it does, becomes our new
A
plan
guide
going
to the
forward,
zoning.
then you've got that
But if it,
condition that it needs to, does it conform with the plan or not? And if the answer is no, and then it's ruled against, then
So
you have to
we'd
lean
ha-
on legal.
it's one of those things where if something like this comes into fruition, in addition to the changes of the code, I think that it has to be that it's, we have now, I forget how many things they have to follow, 10,
Like
12.
8 of them, 10 of them, something like that.
Is that it should be, not that they necessarily have to conform to all of them, but a majority of them. But I also think a big part of this is an education piece.
Which majority?
The ones that are important at the time.
Well, I think those two should be, for example, maybe the language needs to say, something along the lines of,
For example, in our current land use plan, 2012, which is the current plan, and in almost any land use plan I have read, there's always a broad stroke that reads, this is not a prescription, meaning a have to. The board, in this case, the Board of Township Trustees may, believe that
Deviate.
and move to a different, sector or different characteristic. The idea is that this is an argument. You're presenting an argument of a plan is only as good as you know it today because conditions change, therefore your plan has to change. And that's why this is, best case scenario, a 10-year look into the future of what we anticipate happening, not that what will happen. Though the board would have a legal argument through case law to point to this and say, we are taking a stand against this or for something, and we'll have an argument to present, and there'll be counter arguments as there always would be. So this is, as mentioned, the guiding document. It's really the zoning that is the actual code, the actual prescription in which you have to follow.
But I think what Mr. Kretz is saying is right now, at least, the way the code says, is one of those criteria, I believe, is it consistent with the plan? So while the comprehensive plan says it is a guiding document,
it's not a guide if you're saying it has
it's
to
not a
conform.
guide if one of the things you're telling them is it consistent with? And maybe that criteria needs to come out or needs to be reworded.
And those
in some
criteria
way.
within those things, I think one of the issues that people look at right now is that every single one of those boxes has to be checked. And case law will tell you that it's more of a preponderance of the evidence, than an absolute. So I'm meeting 5 of the 6, or I'm meeting 2 of the 6. You have a better chance to say no at the 2 to the 6 versus the 5 to the 6.
I'm just pointing it out.
Yeah, and when you get right down to it, the underlying legislation says you can have a zoning code based on a comprehensive land use plan. That's the enabling legislation. So that's, it kind of gets us from point A to point B, and I think
Yeah.
that's why it almost has to be in there. But we have to figure out maybe how to word that, Dawn, a little bit.
Yeah, I think we can play with that wording a little bit, but.
Yeah,
Well, you
Yeah,
could say
and-
does or has, and then
yeah.
Well, and again, that's why I go back to, it's also education, it's education of those people that are making these decisions,
that's the hard part, yeah.
is, from the zoning commission, from a board of trustees, is that while that is one thing, yeah, you want to look at, because you don't want it to be so far afield of what the comprehensive plan is, because that's the guide of what, you anticipate and believe how the township should develop. At the same time, it shouldn't be an end-all be-all that if it doesn't fit
And
it.
where that's gonna come into probably most of the time is something that we have shown as full agriculture. And now all of a sudden Honda wants to build its facility there. I mean, that's a total reversal from one way to another. But but it also then maybe makes sense because of where it is and how it is.
Yeah.
So we have to,
Well, you do,
Have that pause.
you still have a PUD process,
absolutely.
so, and that's, I don't
That's
wanna
the
say
big
your-
one.
Your saving grace, but, okay.
The last one I have is pretty vanilla as far as that goes. That is, industrial. Industrial.
That's a new one.
Sorry, that's a new one.
It's
But
condo.
the big thing where is I moved the office, commercial, and open spaces over to secondary uses in that. And the reason being is generally the office or the industrial, it's kind of one of those things that gives you the best return as far as your investment goes as a township. Larger areas, less services provided, and more tax base.
Yeah.
So,
On this note, and it's more just a matter, so the north side of Dayton Xenia across from Valley Asphalt and the gravel pits there.
yeah,
Is that mining or is that industrial?
it's industrial on the land use plan.
Okay,
But the zoning map has it as the
mining
mining
district.
district, whatever we
MX.
have it as.
Yeah, and so I don't know if you need to, in here, I don't know if this is intended to include mining and industrial.
I need to probably add that into the industrial use. That's very
You
good.
have it as
Oh,
primary use,
extraction
it's
and
there.
mining, I do have it
Yeah.
on there.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I was actually thinking when I did that.
I'm just thinking more in the title, but maybe it's just fine where it is. Okay, good
Yeah.
enough.
Why would you remove the office and retail uses? Cause like at the end of, where you come out of
So-
Space Drive and come out
Yeah.
onto, across from like the cemetery and stuff, there's like offices and,
Yeah, valid question. And I didn't remove those, I made them secondary uses.
Oh,
The
okay.
green
I'm
text
sorry.
there is basically
green.
saying, that's the whole thing throughout, where the consultant lumped commercial to consider office, blah, 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 everything as one thing is commercial, and always said, no, includes office. I drew it out and put office as a separate use on there. So you'll see office, commercial, and
okay,
open space.
I got it, I see it.
When
Sorry,
you
I
say-
thought you were noting that you were,
No, not removing it.
okay.
And definitionally, when you say secondary, are you saying conditional or are you saying
No, they won't be
Permitted.
conditional, they'll be, consideration should be secondary.
there's support uses? Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Okay. Okay,
Open space and conservation.
how much more do we have
Oh,
here? I'm
sorry.
I'm sorry.
This is pretty much the last one.
Yeah,
Okay, that's,
open space and conservation.
I'm just trying to be respectful of everybody's time.
And we can get into Valley Springs Farm area later. Open space and conservation is just exactly what it is, open space and conservation. So, those are the areas, the spotted turtle trails, the wetlands association properties, the floodways, the things that are owned by, the Army Corps of Engineers and different folks down through there. So those are the areas that are just designated out. We know that they can't be used for anything, and we just have to show them somehow on the map.
The overarching, I think, number one, appreciate the high-level summary and appreciate the, notation and the color differential to be able to pick out what changed quickly. Without seeing a map, and the map at the end is really Valley Springs map.
Yeah.
One of the things that came up during that process when Max was still going through it was that we were changing the vision of use of certain lands to different than what it was already zoned as. So we were creating a potential problem. And we were increasing buffer zones, specifically like along rivers and greenways, into areas that were already essentially in a PUD in some cases. So
You're absolutely correct.
up and down Hilltop was one of those areas, and I pointed out, I'm like, that's already zoned 4 units an acre. It's in the PUD, and you're changing it, you're adding 50 more feet of green space. That's a taking. You're gonna.
I took that that layer
Okay.
completely out of the GIS and
Okay.
just turned on the floodway area and the areas that were actually defined as that. I don't know why they did what they did.
Okay. I'm just, as long as you're
Yeah.
aware of that and you've addressed
There's
that,
things I looked at on,
because they were changing. it's like-
Ryan's had kind of a sneak peek at the GIS map, because I've been starting to work on that now that I have some more time again, and it looks a lot different
Just-
than
yeah.
what you saw the first time.
It doesn't mean you can't go from 6 to 4 or 8 to 6 units, whatever,
Yeah.
but it's one of those things where if it's already zoned and it's already in a PUD.
You can't totally
you're-
change that
you can't-
characteristic.
If you do that, you are creating a problem at that specific site plan. You're
So one of the things that I'm working on now was that map, but in conjunction with that is the existing land use characteristic map. And that, I want to be able to kind of look at those at the end and really see how those
Okay.
need to be changed.
Okay,
Work in progress.
good. Appreciate the overview.
No problem. Thanks. Sorry
Thanks.
about the length of it.
No worries.
That's all I have.
Great.
Thank you.
And yeah, I appreciate the feedback. I really do. Thank you.
Okay. MVRPC, or Ms. Frick, I'm sorry, any update?
No, I just, was just gonna note, I think like Andy mentioned, I did send to you all today, just sort of the summary of the changes in House Bill 315, and so at some point, if you have any questions, just let me know, but it's just kind of an overall of the things I think that could affect the township, so.
Great, thank you. MVRPC, or Mr. Zahari, I keep trying. Finally, MVRPC.
Meeting is the Thursday this week, so I will have a
Okay.
update, next month.
Okay, and TAC, was there?
TAC
anything?
was relatively short. We just did the changes in the transportation plan. They had a couple of their speakers that couldn't show up. They're going through that move downtown, so they were a mess. Plus, they had the NATO thing coming in, so they
Yeah.
didn't want to spend any extra time with us. And we don't have a meeting for the month of June.
Okay. And opioid, and we did dollars for the sheriff last time.
Yeah, spoke with the sheriff last week and again today. We're processing that. I actually sent over the invoice and it's going through the AP process now.
Okay. Greene County Regional Planning, I had nothing to report. Health Department, was there anything?
The meeting is also on Thursday, so I
Okay.
will have a update next month.
Okay. School superintendent, city manager, administrator meeting?
Yes, Board, couple of things. One, I do want to thank the Board of Education. First, thank Mr. Schroeder. We do have a local stormwater issue at the intersection of Dunham and Ankeny. Mr. Schroeder has identified a fix, yet the fix included running some tile and a pipe underneath Ankeny and utilizing an existing dry well on the school's property at Coy Trabine. I got Mr. Schroeder connected with the schools, and the school board voted 2 weeks ago to allow us to have access to that dry well. So we'll be accomplishing that small in-house stormwater project and benefiting a few homes there. Also, we do have our joint meeting with the Beavercreek City School District as well as City of Beavercreek. So our annual joint meeting will be Monday, September 15th at 6:30 p.m. And then,
Where at the schools?
yes, it'll be hosted at the school's newer admin office.
I hear that's nice. Okay.
Indeed. And then the last item is, the city reached out to me to discuss just where we're at with the US 35 Super Street. They've been receiving some feedback from residents, and there was some discussion among city council members about a desire just to see what could be and what we need to do to bring that back up as a topic. So city staff as well as township staff, we have a joint session here coming up in a couple weeks to talk about that and see if anything what we can discuss to bring back up. And that is it.
Thank you. Right, Pat? Air Force Restoration Advisory Board?
June 18th.
Greene County Wastewater and Water Committee?
Yeah, we had our semi-annual meeting last week. Essentially, the Greene County Sanitary Engineering went over kind of a closed loop on the soft watering initiative that they have. They're very successful and very happy with that. They also gave an update of their annual revenue and expenses. The only thing they really noted was that, with increased sensitivity with industry trends to try to conserve water, even though, customer base may be growing, the fixtures in those new homes are more efficient than older homes. So they're seeing, some not the same utilization, similar to as, your vehicle gets better gas mileage, gas per, the amount of gas you use goes down because you have more efficient vehicles.
Sure.
And then also, we're not in a drought right now. It's actually been pretty wet. So the capital improvement project in the township, the well field project off of Hilltop, is completely impacted by having a wet season. So as soon as they can have a dry spell and go out there and continue their work, they're waiting for that. And that is it.
Great. Thank you. Greene County Township Association, the only thing I know is the meeting is it's the June 10th, and it's at the Cedar Creek Vineyards, which is always a good place. Investment Oversight Committee, I had nothing to report unless Mr. Zaharieff did.
Got nothing.
Okay. And then the 911 Advisory Committee, I had nothing new to report, so. At this time, unless there's anything else to come before the board,
And board, if you would read the section of Ohio Revised Code, that's on your screen.
okay. I will. Mr. Zaharieff, the only thing you might check, so when Mrs. Dean made a motion to excuse Ms. Wallace, there was a motion, there was no second. So, but we did a vote, so I don't know if you needed a second for that or not.
In regards to the beginning of the meeting?
Correct?
Yeah, so there's a.
Because I did not
vote
second it, just FYI.
Oh, you done second?
No.
We don't have an agenda for a meeting.
No, we had an agenda. It was excusing Ms. Wallace.
Yeah, you wanted to separate that in two separate motions then?
It was two separate motions, I believe, but
It
maybe
was-
not. If it was all in one, then you're
It's all
okay.
in one.
It wasn't.
I'm fine with the vote. I just want to make sure if you need us to go back and
I think what you.
second it or not.
Because he said you want to add Miss Wallace, add that.
Okay, then you're good.
We-
Okay. Just making sure that it was covered.
Yeah, it was covered, but it was.
I
under
thought
one motion.
when we did it and then I voted, and I'm like, wait a minute, didn't do a second, so, okay.
You should have probably voted on the amendment to the addition or separate.
It was done as amended, so we're fine. Okay. At this time, we have a motion to go into executive session under Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G1, to consider the employment, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes. Okay. Chief Hawker, if you could stay with us for this first part of it, and then we'll excuse you and let you get on to more fun things. So, is Chief coming back, or is he just flipping the,
Yeah, I think he
okay,
was just going to turn this on.
okay.
All right.
I came back for the exciting conclusion.
All right, board, it is 7:29. Just need a motion to exit executive session and reconvene the regular meeting.
So moved.
Second,
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
yes.
Motion to adjourn.
And if there's nothing else to come before the board, motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Have